Good evening, Bahamas. Coming up tonight in our news.
The Deputy Prime Minister announces changes to the country's financial sector.
As we begin 2019, we take a look at just how effective the government's over-the-hill rejuvenation project really is.
Some Salvador residents sound off about high electricity bills.
Our News is brought to you by Alive.
Welcome to Our News and thanks for joining us. I'm Jared Higgs. Topping news tonight, chaos and confusion at University of the Bahamas as students endured a second day of lengthy lines. Hundreds of them, about 500 according to university officials, tried to pay their tuition using a manual system. University President Dr. Rodney Smith telling the media that increased enrollment is a part of the issue, but several UB students we spoke with aren't buying it.
It's been ridiculous. We must have been there for about 10 hours all the way in the back there. Sun hot, I ain't on no breakfast. I just trying to go to school next semester, you feel me?
Hundreds of students stood and sat in the sun, forming lines that wrapped around buildings, hoping that at some point they'd be able to pay their school fees.
I have been here from 7:30 waiting on this line, and it seems like this line isn't going anywhere.
In the midst of the frustrating and at times chaotic scenes, Smith and other university officials addressed the media, telling reporters that as a result of the long queues, the university activated a contingency plan that included an extension of the deadline for fee payment from January 3rd to January 7th.
The university will extend its operation into the weekend in order to complete registration for students. The Student Services offices within the Portia M. Smith building will be open on Saturday, 5th of January, as well as Sunday, the 6th of January, 2019, from 9 a.m. in the morning until 5 p.m. in the evening.
According to the university president, the issue stems from the fact that students are unable to pay their school fees online because the majority of them are either trying to utilize the university's deferred payment plan or they are on scholarships, which require a different payment process. Smith indicated that a large influx of new students and teachers who were late to submit grades also contributed to the challenges. Smith was also asked if he was concerned that the current issues plaguing student registration would affect the university's brand, considering that online payment and registration are mainstays at universities around the world.
I'm not concerned about it affecting the university's brand because from my own personal experiences, I know that this happens at other universities as well. I think that in the Bahamas, we only have the experiences of the past. So we make the assumption that we're either going backwards as opposed to going forward.
However, these students, many of whom were waiting in line before 8 a.m., didn't agree.
I don't even recommend this place as a university. I qualified as a still college because it's not up to standards.
I don't like what's going on, man. They need to do something with the system, try to better it and stuff. Just saying like that.
For university, I believe it's supposed to be run with intelligence, you know what I mean? Because they're teaching us, how to be more progressive in life and those things. This ain't making no sense. This ain't practicing what they preach.
Let me tell you something, all right? I'm so tired of this like I've been out here.
Some of those irate students were missing work as they attempted to pay for classes. They say long lines to pay school fees weren't what they envisioned when they pictured their university experience.
Things been kind of rough lately. They saying they've been there for 7 hours. I know what's going on. I've been on the wrong line. They finally bring me back here. Now I gotta wait on this other long line. It ain't really making no sense. You feel me? That's my honest opinion.
If I'm here till 9 at night, hopefully somebody will bring me some dinner.
If and when these students are over their registration woes, they may not be out of trouble, especially those returning to UB next semester. The university president says he can't ensure that the chaos that ensued during this registration period won't repeat itself in upcoming terms.
We cannot guarantee anything because as we move and develop the system and implement modules, we'll run into other kinds of issues. The main issue we ran into this week was not that the system could not handle it. The main issue was that we had so many deferred payment students online without the required documentation.
As for the students, Many of them just want to pay their bill and enjoy the last few days of their break.
Look at the line. That look like intelligence? That don't look like intelligence. That don't.
Deputy Prime Minister Peter Turnquest announcing the development and implementation of a new framework that officials insist will strengthen the financial services industry by creating a level playing field for those in the sector. The DPM announced that the sweeping changes would, for now, mean no increase in taxes for the industry. Jasmine Brown reports.
The Deputy Prime Minister made the announcement here at the Office of the Prime Minister, where he revealed that new regime will try to strike that delicate balance between doing what's best for the country and meeting international standards.
It is intended that these changes will result in revenue neutrality, meaning that there will be no increased taxation on any particular segment. But what it does do is remove the appearance of preference for one sector over the other. And so now you have a total level playing field between the offshore sector and the domestic sector.
Turnquest was joined by members of the private sector, including officials from the Bahamas Institute of Chartered Accountants and the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation. Turnquest explained that under the framework, all financial institutions will now be permitted to offer services to both domestic and international clients, once the financial institution meets the prescribed regulatory requirements. He added that the new framework, which took effect on January 1st, also proposes that financial institutions including banks, insurance, trust companies, investment advisors, mutual fund administrators, and brokers-dealers will be exempted from paying a business license fee when renewing or applying for a license starting January 2020.
In respect to the average Bahamian business person, they will find no changes in respect to the way that they do business and the cost of their doing business. In fact, some may find that there's actually a reduction in the business license fee. But at the end of the day, there really is intended that this will be revenue neutral with very little impact on the local business community. So again, this is about leveling the playing field. And so there are some local financial institutions who would have been subject to both regulatory fees and business license fees based upon their turnover, which the offshore banks would not have been subject to. So this actually makes the local domestic financial service providers more competitive in this industrial sector, and we expect that we will see more persons engage in domestic financial institutions.
Today's announcement follows the recent passage of a package of legislation aimed at implementing measures that will ensure compliance with international standards on tax governance and transparency. Turnquest says while the Minutes administration has done its best to fall in line, it appears that the goalposts set by those organizations are ever changing. Most recently, the Bahamas landed on the Netherlands' list of low-tax jurisdictions. Turnquest called it concerning and premature, as he says the country is working very hard to meet international standards. However, he says the government must also do what's right for the Bahamian people.
I also want to underscore that it's important that we strike the right balance between economic sustainability and compliance with international standards. As the sustainability and success of our country's financial services sector impact every aspect of our economy and, by extension, our way of life.
Reporting for our News, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Turnquest confirming today that the government is still finalizing those voluntary separation exercise for Grand Lucayan employees who opted to take the VSEPs. His comments come after the DPM told our news team during an interview on the sidelines of the Boxing Day parade that the process would be completed this week, but he declined to commit to a timeline.
It should be settled very shortly.
Any timeline on very shortly? When will that?
Again, I would leave that specific to the board. All I can say is that it has been funded.
The government, which purchased the property in September, has accepted responsibility for paying worker severance. The resort was purchased for $65 million, with $30 million paid up front, with intentions to find a private buyer for the property. More than 200 employees of the resort have applied for VSEPs. Lucayan Renewal Holdings, a special purpose vehicle established by the government, is handling the process and is also responsible for finding a new buyer for the resort. Less than a year since its inception, the government's Over-the-Hill Rejuvenation Project has gotten started in the Bain and Grantstown area. Kyle Joaquin has a look at the program's progress.
Well, we had a lot of representatives here in Baintown from way back from while about the time. And all the representatives come, and go, just had immediately leave it just like that.
Edison Halbert has lived in the Bain and Grantstown area his entire life, and at the age of 77, he said he's seen just about everything. But the area, he said, is littered with trash, derelict vehicles, and people not looking to make it any better.
Well, what I see happening in Baytown now is the government doing a very good job on trying to keep the community clean, but the Bahamian people, every time they clean, they come back and make dirt. And we have Joneses, people paying Joneses to move their garbage, to throw on other people's property.
And since getting the government's Over the Hill Rejuvenation Initiative off the ground last year, Project Officer Rocky Nesbitt said they've been focusing on a bit more than tax-free zones.
42 persons were hired from the Office of the Prime Minister with the Over the Hill unit to work along at environmental monitors with Department of Environmental Health. So they're going to work on a daily basis, Monday to Friday.
But there's still a level of poverty in the area and a lack of what some would say are basic living necessities, like running water. According to Nesbitt, because of the poor composition of many homes in the area, placing pipes for running water in them would be difficult.
In the target area, we have about 88 standpipes. 79 of those standpipes are actively working, but have meters on the back that goes to water and sewage. And Ministry of Works, starting 2019, will have a management contract out so that these will be repaired.
Then there are the abandoned buildings.
Well, what we're doing is we're doing a title search and assessment with DHS and Ministry of Works. So once we get that information of persons with proof of ownership, etc., we come to an agreement with those individuals and we try to abolish these and do a mechanical demolition for these properties.
Government allocated $5 million in the 2018-2019 budget for the Over the Hill project, which for now covers Bain and Grantstown and Centerville. Just last year, government released what's become known as the White Paper for public consultation. The Over the Hill areas have also been dubbed tax-free zones where businesses in the area, aside from web shops and liquor stores, would be exempt from certain taxes. For Howard Hanna, who has called this area home for over 5 decades, Baintown is a good area, but any bit of help would go a long way.
If you could get 1 or 2 brothers to get 1 or 2 little jobs, that'd be a little all right too.
For Our News, I'm Kyle Joaquin.
Following a 45% increase in the average residential light bill in the Bahamas last year, residents of San Salvador are calling on the government to help ease the burden caused by the rising cost of living. Residents we spoke to say higher electricity bills, coupled with a recent VAT hike, have made life on the island unbearable. Jillian Gray reports.
Residents in San Salvador are joining the cries echoed throughout the country over high electricity bills. Some say that following the Yuletide season, their bills are still high, even though they had none of the Christmas trimmings.
No lights on the house, and my light bill is $500 or $600 or something dollars.
I think it's ridiculous. And I heard the government say things about no watt, but I think they need to do something about the fuel cost. That is, you being charged a fuel cost far more than what you consume. Mm-hmm. So, and I think if the government or any way that they can do anything to really help people, it would be by alleviating or cutting down on the fuel cost.
Electricity bill is kind of a concern for the residents of San Salvador, even though it's 100% employment on San Salvador. So most of it is because of the fuel surcharge, and I believe that if the government can assist us in that area, we would have even greater development taking place in San Salvador.
Bahamas Power and Light was lambasted last year after energy costs doubled or tripled for some residents. High fuel costs and a series of fires at the power company's Clifton and Blue Hills power plants were said to be the cause. According to data provided by BPL, the average residential power bill in the Bahamas increased by 45% between October 2017 and October 2018. Added to the plight of San Salvador residents is the controversial increase in value-added tax. While residents in the capital have complained about the 4.5% increase, San Salvador residents say it's twice as hard for them.
If we paid VAT for anything in Nassau, we still have to pay for that VAT when we come over here. So it's kind of affecting the islanders a little more.
I'm a beautician and I have a bar, so it's rough. It's not easy.
Have you had to carry up your prices?
Definitely.
Last summer, the government foreshadowed that residents of the Family Islands could benefit from an extension of the Over the Hill initiative. Residents say that needs to happen sooner than later.
I would be hoping that'd be over the hill. But ain't nothing happening with the Family Island. At least not in Salvador that I'm aware of. So I'm hoping that some changes be made because it's really high, and it's costly on people on the island. You know, so I'm hoping something change. Quick, fast, and hurry.
It's kind of hard on them, and if they would move that from our poor people, San Salvador and the Family Islands could go even further. The sky is the limit, and we want to continue to make great things happen in San Salvador and to continue to blow our guests' expectation on the island. So with that, if they help us with that, it would be a plus.
Now, the government has not given a timeline as to when the promised tax relief will come for Family Islands. But whenever it does, San Salvador residents say it will be a welcomed relief for their economy. Reporting from San Salvador for Our News, I'm Jillian Gray.
Still to come on Our News, a multi-million-dollar project improving the quality of water for hundreds of San Salvador residents. The details after this.